Have you ever reached for your phone to call someone, only to remember they're gone? Or walked into a room expecting to hear a familiar voice, only to be greeted by silence? Grief doesn't always arrive with tears. Sometimes it comes disguised as forgetfulness, anger, exhaustion, or even guilt. It lingers in ordinary moments, an empty chair at dinner, an unread message, a birthday that no longer feels like a celebration. The strange thing about grief is that it doesn't just make you miss someone. It changes the way you see the world, and even yourself. Tonight, we're exploring the hidden psychology of grief, why it hurts so deeply, why everyone experiences it differently, and why healing isn't about forgetting. It's about learning how to carry love after loss. From the moment we're born, our brains are designed to form attachments. Parents, friends, partners, even pets. These relationships become part of our emotional identity. Your brain begins to expect their presence. It predicts their voice. It anticipates their messages. It includes them in your future. When someone dies, or suddenly disappears, your brain doesn't instantly update. For days, weeks, sometimes months, a part of your mind still expects them to walk through the door. That's why people often say, "I keep forgetting they're gone." It's not denial. It's the brain struggling to rewrite years of emotional programming. Grief isn't only emotional. It's neurological. But grief doesn't only affect the mind. It leaves traces throughout the entire body. Researchers have found that grieving people often experience headaches, muscle aches, chest tightness, stomach problems, and overwhelming fatigue. Some even describe feeling physically heavy, as though every step requires more energy than it did before. This happens because the brain doesn't separate emotional pain from physical pain as much as we might think. Many of the same neural pathways involved in physical suffering become active during intense emotional loss. In other words, the pain of grief isn't just in your head. Your body is experiencing it too. That's why someone who is grieving may sleep all day yet still wake up exhausted. They may lose their appetite, or eat constantly in search of comfort. They may struggle to focus on conversations, reread the same page over and over, or forget simple tasks they once completed without thinking. These reactions can be frightening. Many people wonder if they're losing their minds. But in most cases, they're experiencing one of the most natural responses the human brain is capable of. Grief forces the mind to rebuild a world that suddenly no longer makes sense. Imagine spending years believing someone would always be there. You make plans with them. You celebrate milestones together. You picture them in your future. Then, in a single moment, that future disappears. Your brain must rewrite thousands of memories, habits, and expectations. That process takes time. And while it's happening, everyday life can feel strangely unreal. You may laugh at a joke and immediately feel guilty for smiling. You may enjoy a peaceful afternoon before suddenly being overwhelmed by sadness because a familiar smell, a song, or a place reminds you of the person you lost. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. It arrives in waves. Sometimes gentle. Sometimes powerful enough to knock the breath out of you. And neither kind of wave means you're healing too slowly. It simply means your love for that person is still finding its place in a life that looks different than it once did. People often imagine grief as crying every day. But psychology paints a different picture. Grief can look like losing motivation, forgetting simple things, feeling numb, becoming irritated over tiny problems. Some people can't stop talking. Others become completely silent. Both are grieving. Because grief affects memory, concentration, sleep, appetite, and even physical health. The body mourns too. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the funeral. It's everything that comes afterward. The first birthday. The first holiday. The first time life keeps moving while your heart feels frozen. Grief teaches you that the world doesn't stop. Even when yours has. A university student loses her grandmother during exams. She tells everyone she's okay. She keeps attending classes. She smiles. She laughs with friends. But suddenly she begins failing quizzes she would normally pass. She forgets assignments. She feels tired all the time. People call her lazy. But in reality, her brain is using enormous emotional energy simply trying to process loss. Grief doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind poor performance. A father loses his wife after decades together. Months later, every evening he still sets 2 cups on the table before realizing she's no longer there. He isn't losing his memory. He's experiencing what psychologists call continuing attachment. His habits were built around love. And habits don't disappear overnight. A young man loses his closest friend. Instead of crying, he becomes angry. He argues with family. Stops answering calls. Pushes everyone away. People assume he's become cold. But anger is often grief wearing armor. Because feeling angry is sometimes easier than admitting your heart has been shattered. We've all heard the 5 stages of grief. Denial. Anger. Bargaining. Depression. Acceptance. But here's what many people misunderstand. Grief isn't a checklist. You don't move through it like climbing stairs. Some days you feel acceptance. The next day you're angry again. Then you're laughing. Then suddenly crying over a song you haven't heard in years. Healing isn't linear. It's messy. It's unpredictable. And that's completely human. Some people heal by talking. Others heal by writing. Some find comfort in photographs. Others avoid looking at them for years. Some keep their loved ones' belongings exactly where they were. Others donate everything because the memories feel too painful. None of these reactions automatically mean someone is grieving correctly or incorrectly. Every relationship is unique. So every loss is unique. One of the greatest mistakes we make is expecting grief to have an expiration date. We tell people to move on. We ask if they're over it yet. But love doesn't disappear simply because time has passed. The people we lose continue to shape our decisions, our values, and our memories. In many ways, they remain part of who we are. Perhaps healing isn't about leaving them behind. Perhaps it's about learning to carry their memory without allowing the weight of loss to stop us from living. Eventually, grief changes. Not because the person mattered less, but because your heart slowly learns to grow around the pain. The scar remains. But so does the love. Perhaps grief isn't something we're meant to get over. Perhaps it's proof that someone mattered. That they changed us. That love leaves fingerprints on the human mind long after someone is gone. Maybe healing doesn't mean saying goodbye. Maybe it means finding new ways to say, I still carry you with me. So here's a question for you. Have you ever experienced a loss that quietly changed the way you think, love, or live? and what did it teach you about yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration, like, subscribe, and join us for more journeys into the hidden corners of the human mind. Until next time, keep exploring your hidden mind.